G'day, Professor Joseph Drew here. I'm here to talk about a really important distinction that a lot of people just don't pick up on, the difference between real and nominal rates. Now, this is important to local government taxpayers, and anyone making a rate cap or coming up with a taxation rate for the coming year. Now, in this video, I'll deal with a scenario, and the scenario is a rate cap of 0.7%, and that's what a lot of councils in New South Wales have. But it's just an example so that you understand how the concept plays out. So, nominal rates and real rates. If the rate cap was 0.7%, if the rate is increasing by 0.7%, that is the nominal rate. The nominal rate is the thing printed on the piece of paper. Now, the real rate is when you take account of increases or decreases to purchasing power. So most of us understand that money has a time value. Over time, money buys less. So I always tell people, I can remember when I was a kid being able to buy a Have a Heart ice cream for 50 cents. It was a 50-cent piece precisely you had to spend. Go try buy a Have a Heart ice cream for 50 cents now. I think you'll find it's more like $3.50. Okay, so money loses purchasing power over time, and that's because of a thing called inflation. So if we adjust the nominal rate for the loss in purchasing power, we will get the real rate. But the adjustment that we make depends on which perspective we're looking at. It's not always CPI, and this is a mistake that regulators make and local governments often make. So from a local government perspective, the change in purchasing power is best measured by the producer price index, not CPI. CPI is a basket of household goods. It includes things like movie tickets and popcorn and bananas and all those things that you guys don't buy. The PPI measures things that industries and factories purchase and the change in price there. So remember, we are looking at a rate cap of 0.7%. That's the nominal rate. If we adjust that for PPI, which is currently 3.7%, that means the real change in taxes for councils is negative 3%. So all I've done is take the nominal rate cap, 0.7%. I've subtracted from it my decrease in purchasing power, 3.7%. 0.7 take 3.7 is minus 3%, i.e. your taxes are going back by 3%. Now, a couple things to note. This PPI is the last release data. Now, this rate cap, though, applies to next financial year. And we all know that inflation is increasing rapidly. If you bought any steel or concrete lately, you know that well and truly. We know that PPIs in other countries are double digits. Europe is 30%. So clearly, the real reduction or the real rate of increase to your taxes is going to be a lot less than minus 3% by the time you actually get through next financial year. I think you'll find your PPI is at least double digits. So your 0.7% increase to tax means you're probably going backwards in the order of at least 9.3% or perhaps a lot more. And of course, for most local governments, that's just simply not sustainable. It's not doable. Now let's look at it from the perspective of the taxpayer. Now, the taxpayer is concerned about CPI. CPI is the thing that has the impact on their life. It measures a basket of household goods. That's what a taxpayer normally buys. And part of their basket of goods that they have to buy is their local government taxation. But let's have a look at this rate cap, this increase of 0.7%, how it stacks up in real terms. So in nominal terms, the increase to the local government taxes is 0.7%, depending on how the distribution is done within the local government area. In real terms, what's happening to their taxes? 0.7% minus, this time 3.5. CPI is usually a little bit lower than PPI in a high inflation environment. And that gives us a negative 2.8%. So in real terms, their taxes have actually reduced by 2.8%. They should have great big smiles on their faces like this couple in the picture. Now, you'll say to me, but what about pensioners on a fixed income? Well, that's not actually true. the pension and most welfare benefits are linked to CPI. So CPI, if it is 3.5%, when it next gets adjusted, that's what their pension will go up by. But their taxes only went up, local government taxes only went up by 0.7%. That means in real terms, they're actually better off. It's a really important point, and it's a point missing for most people, I think. So the moral to the story, particularly in a high inflation environment, is we need to know the difference between nominal rates and real rates. We need to know which measure of purchasing power is relevant. For councils, it's PPI. For a taxpayer, it's CPI. And finally, we need to be having an eye to the future, because these rate caps, and even if you're not in a rate capping environment, making your rate, you do that now. In fact, it usually happens November the year before the financial year starts, 6 months before it starts. Yet inflation changes a lot in a 6-month period. Now, in the past, it's been pretty stable. You haven't had to worry about it much. But at the moment, it's skyrocketing. It's changing on a weekly, monthly basis, inflation and the reduction in purchasing power. So we need to have an eye on the future, and the leading indicator is the PPI. CPI tends to follow that when inflation's on the rise. Also, we should be looking at PPI overseas. Why? Well, a lot of the goods that we purchase, that households purchase and local governments purchase, come from overseas. From China, where PPI is around 10%, from Europe, where PPI is about 30%, from America, where PPI is about 12%. We need to be looking to those countries, because eventually when the inventory is run down in Australia and we import more of those goods, we're going to be paying more for them, because the factories producing the goods had to pay more to produce them. They have to pass on and will pass on most of the costs. So that gives us a view to what things are likely to look like 6 to 12 months down the track. Now, Australia tends to be behind the other countries because we're behind the other countries with our reopening and our stimulus programs. So another way of trying to understand what the future is likely to be is to look at CPI in America and England in particular. That gives you a good idea of what our CPI is likely to be 6 to 12 months down the track, because we essentially did the same things. And in fact, in some instances, we did more extreme things. So we're probably expecting worse outcomes. So I hope this video has clarified matters for you. If it has, please do me a favor, subscribe and flick this on to someone else. Please consider putting it up on your council website so that your residents do understand the difference between real and nominal rates, and do understand how it impacts local government as well as themselves. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.